Yeah, so we did an all-night search on this guy, and some chief found him the next day, and his parachute was hanging off one of the antennas, and he'd been dangling out there all night long.
Really?
So yeah, the
And he
pilot,
was alive or dead?
he was okay. Yeah,
And no
yeah.
one, no one heard him screaming. He just,
No one heard him, saw him until the next morning, next light. Some chief out there having a cigarette on the one of the walkways,
wow.
and yeah,
Man, I
yeah,
wonder what the story is there, because that's nuts. Yeah, the last place you would look is like right in front of you.
yeah.
Welcome to the Calm in the Chaos podcast, where we discuss untold heroic experiences and dive into the mindset of the Navy's elite rescue swimmers. Hosted by former U.S. Navy aviation rescue swimmer, Mount Everest solo summiteer, and best-selling author Brian Dickinson.
Hey everyone, it's Brian Dickinson. If you're enjoying these stories, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these conversations, and it keeps the mission alive. And if you want early access to new episodes and to support what we're building, consider becoming a Spotify paid subscriber. Your support means everything. Now let's jump in so others may live. All right, James Brocksmith, happy to have you on. 4
Thank you.
years active, 2 years reserves, fellow SAR brother. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank.
Yeah, so we actually both live in Washington State, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, where are you at?
I'm in Maple Valley.
Oh,
We
that's right.
came
I'm in
we came here
Snoqualmie.
14 years ago. Yeah,
Okay, nice. Yeah, I'm in Snoqualmie, so we could have just drove over and done it in the same
had
room.
coffee. Yeah, had coffee together.
We'll have to do that. Well, cool. Well, thanks for being here. For those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in the Midwest, Illinois, Quincy particularly, and uh, big families there in the Midwest. We still go back quite often, and there's four of us in the family, plus my mom and dad, and my two older brothers were in the Navy, so I joined later on, and all three of us were in at the same time, and they
Wow.
did a career Navy and submarines, and so and then my sister as well. But no, it's super strong work ethic. Everybody had a job. You started working at 14. Dad always said at 18, you're not living at home, you're out of the house or you're working or doing something like that. So
Yep.
anyway, college options were very limited for me. And so I looked into it and decided just to go active duty. And I think that might have been a large part of my older brothers at the time. And but yeah, so yep, I enlisted, did a 1 year delayed entry program, and then joined
Nice.
right
What
out
year
of high
was that?
school. I joined in 84,
Okay.
84 to 88 in May. And yep, so I joined to be a CTM, crypto tech maintenance,
Hmm.
and passed A school, got into C school, and it just wasn't really what I wanted to do. I think I was flying too much on the side, and they gave me an option to re-rate, and so my ASVABs were high enough to do pretty much whatever I wanted to do, and so I like this job flies full time. I'm in. And little did I know I was going to be up against a giant fire hose when I took AW Star Swimmer. Where I didn't know I
Yeah.
was going to go Star Swimmer. I just knew it was going to be AW, and they flew
Mm.
on S3s and P3s, and yeah. So then I went from there.
Did you want to go fixed wing like initially?
I probably wanted to fly jets more than anything on
Hmm.
the S3 at the time. Um, but if anybody remembers those days when you were going through air crew, if you swam well enough, they would billet you to go to SAR school.
Mm.
And some guys would sandbag it. They would just kind of like purposely flop and get really bad scores to avoid SAR school because they knew the failure rate. And me, I would be never one to shy away from a challenge. I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
Hmm.
And so they offered me SAR school. I don't know if they offered it to me or voluntold me
Yeah.
if I was going to SAR school, but I was still in AW. And so, yep, and I took it.
Okay. So back then, did you go through AW school prior to going to air crew?
No, you went through air crew, SAR school, and then Millington for AW training,
That's
A
same
school,
for me.
right? And then you
Yeah.
went to the
So,
RAG after that.
yep, same. Let's talk about aircrew and SAR school back in, well, what year
Hmm.
did you go through?
I went through it in late 84, probably early 85.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty uneventful. Air crew was just like camp. I really
Sounds fun.
enjoyed the land SAR and doing all that stuff, and that was just like camp. And then, of course, when you go to a SAR school, you really don't know what's coming at you.
Hmm.
Back at the time, the failure rate was just as high as later on. I remember, I mean, I stayed on track and I started and finished with my original guys. We had a
Nice.
lot of people roll in and roll out.
Hmm.
But, you had the typical Hell Week, and then you had that last Friday before you got out of Hell Week. And, just kept your nose to the grindstone, helped your guy, your classmate with you, just push them along and just stay on track and stay focused, keep your nose down and just work hard and you would pass, you know. I
Yeah. What
wasn't
was the hardest? What do you remember the hardest part for yourself going through that? Hey, if you love high stakes action, military intrigue, and stories that keep you turning pages late into the night, you won't want to miss my new thriller, Bloodline of Redemption. From a rogue Russian submarine on a covert nuclear mission to the unforgiving peaks of the world's deadliest mountains, it's a nonstop ride of suspense and survival. Order your copy now on Amazon, or wherever books are sold, and dive into the mission.
the hardest part, probably that Hell Week was probably
Yeah.
the hardest part. Yeah, the final rescues and the multiples and all that stuff that we did at the end. Uh, I just stayed extremely technical, with
Mhm.
remembering everything they said, staying with the technique, not trying to overdo it or underdo it, just focus on getting the job done and prioritizing. I could always keep a clear head in the water. And I think I've heard your podcast in the past that, the water's the great equalizer. And it was never an issue for me
Mhm.
to be in the water, be held under. I never panicked. And I think that's what they were looking for, that you would not give up and quit, you know. So just keep working. So it was start to finish pretty uneventful. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. Um,
Yeah.
so were you swimming growing up? Like, were you always comfortable in the water?
I played some sports, basketball and baseball.
In the
Um,
water?
yeah. No, I swam, but I was never a competitive swimmer.
Yeah.
No, nothing
Same.
like that. Yeah. I was comfortable in it and I never had any concerns about it.
Yeah.
Um, so no.
So because there's and this was pre-Marecki, there's, things were a little bit different. Um, the attrition rate, it still is very
Yeah.
high. What is different about you? Like, it's uneventful, but it's
Yeah,
pretty
I
eventful.
look at my daughter, she's 20 and she is fierce. Like she is just like if you put someone up to a challenge, she's not going to back down to it. If you get in your mind you want to do something, you can do it. And I think
Mhm.
I've always had that trait that
Yeah, that mindset.
yeah, yeah, like don't tell me what I can't do. I'll tell you what I can do. That type of, and that's carried me in my career ever since.
Yeah, it's funny, and it's I think it is a common thread through us, the people that make it through, and even, different like special ops. I was on Never Quit, Marcus Luttrell's podcast a month or so ago, and I don't remember if it might have been during it or offline, but his wife's involved in the podcast. My wife was on it, so it's
Hmm.
kind of cool. But he and his twin brother, who are both, in the SEALs, had a goal when they turned 50, which is, in fact, I think they might have just turned 50, to climb Mount Everest. And of course, I've climbed it, soloed it, and he's like, you could take us, and and it's that same mindset. His wife's like, no, I think you're good, and he's like, if you tell me that I can't do it, it's just going to make me want to do it more and prove
Yeah,
me wrong.
exactly.
So I'm like, yeah, reverse, psychology here. Tell him that you could totally do it. I mean, he might lose interest.
Yeah, I'm so with you on that. And there's just some things I don't do because I don't want to do it.
Hmm.
But if I want to do it, I'm going to get it done, and
Yeah.
one way or the other. So, here I am all these years later, and it still serves me well. I mean, all that training and what I was able to do has served me extremely well in my career field. So, yeah, definitely.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's again another common thread. Like those that served, 4 plus 2 years. I did 6 myself.
Hmm.
It doesn't stop once you get out. You know, it's a part of you. Maybe it always was, and it was just
Hmm.
unlocked even more, and grown in some of the things that we faced. Because we have that realization for ourselves. Like you can grow up in an abusive family, things outside of your control. These voices can tell you certain things your whole life. And then once you have that opportunity to, get beyond that, you can silence those voices. And it's amazing, how suppressed we can be from things that were told to us and,
Hmm.
behaviors outside of our control. But then at some point, you make that realization, like, no, I can do this,
Yeah.
and nothing's going to stop me. And then
Yeah.
then it becomes you can overcorrect. That pendulum can pin the wrong way, so you have
Yeah.
to have
Get in too
take
deep.
mhm,
Right.
take calculated risks.
I invested all my retirement in crypto and it failed or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, don't do
Yeah.
it. It's a bad
I
idea.
mean, a lot of it just takes common sense. Like, what are the risks? What are the mitigations? What is the final outcome? And you just kind of weigh it all. Back in the day, if you failed out of SAR school, you lost your A school.
Hmm.
And the old saying was you were going to be Hayes Gray underway. And I did
Yep.
not want to be a bosun's mate. I
Nope.
did not want to be a bosun's mate. And so, you still have that commitment hanging out there. And so that was probably a big motivation for me
Hmm.
at the time. Big
Yeah,
motivation.
same. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was the same when I went through. It's like, here's your option. If you fail, then guess what? Not an option. I will die
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're going to have to pull me out of the pool. You're going to have to drag me out for me to quit. I ain't going to quit.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a huge motivator. So you went to Millington. It's all in
Mhm.
Pensacola nowadays. I went through Millington as well.
Oh,
And
okay.
did you go to HS1 or 10?
HS1. Right.
Okay.
Right.
What helicopter platform?
H3s.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I
And
meant.
then the reserves, they also went H3s too.
Okay.
H60s were just starting to come out back then. And we
Yeah,
we envied them because they had air conditioning. We just envied them.
it never worked. I went in
Yeah.
right when they were doing the transition, so good and bad because you have a lot of mishaps when you have a new platform. But
Yeah.
yeah, that AC, especially when it's 120 and you're in a wetsuit and the Persian
Uh,
Gulf, like it's this little drip that's hitting you and you're just like huddled around it. It was brutal.
right.
Um, but yeah, in the H3s, you could just run around, stand up,
Yeah.
do
Yep. You put a
cartwheels.
lot of stuff back there. Yep. But we did a lot of cool flying. Yep.
Nice. So how was HS1? How was that whole experience?
Pretty good, except you get to go to SEER school and,
Yeah,
live
I was
that for a
here.
few days.
That was up in Maine
That,
for you?
that, yeah, Brunswick. And everybody has their stories on SEER, but man, I got a lot out of that.
Mhm.
My takeaway on SEER was information isn't, don't kill yourself to hold information.
Yeah.
If you're going to die, what good is it? Just and there was a lot of lessons learned for me there. I could see grown men how they would respond under stress. You
Mhm.
know, to me, I always thought in my head, it's just training. They're not going to let anything that bad happen to me. So
Yeah.
just get through
Oh,
it. Don't repeat it. Don't have to go back.
yes. Definitely don't want to go back. Um, and that's one of those schools where they encourage failure because that's where you learn.
Hmm.
You're gonna, I remember in the, what do you call it afterward, the debrief,
Hmm.
they're telling me things I didn't even realize there was another person in the room at that
I
time.
know. I know. People watching you, to see
Mhm.
how you would respond. That was good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wish everybody in the Navy could go through that.
Man, yeah, or just everyone in life. Man, how would that change everyone?
Yeah,
It's so
yeah. To
traumatic
Brett.
though, it might just just wreck everyone too. Yeah, not
Right,
everyone
right.
could even make it, the first few hours. But yeah, it's definitely it's a good school, and I know it's
Hmm.
evolved over time as well. And in my book, Calm in the Chaos, I interviewed a couple instructors and just had it vetted out by the Department of Defense, just because I know there's not a lot you can talk about, but there is a
Yeah,
lot that you can.
I got it all locked up here.
Yep, we'll waterboard you towards the end of this and
Oh
try to get it
yeah,
out of you.
yeah. But there was that little guy on the speaker that would, that's enough stuff after you're about ready to pass out. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So did you go through, was it summer or winter?
Winter. Yeah. Well, it was late winter, but yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
it's
that's a
cold.
whole whole different experience. I was in Warner
Yeah.
Springs and it's freezing at night, but roasting during the day. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to talk more about that at some point because I think they were different themes on how they would do the West Coast, East Coast. But yeah, I
yeah.
was Mediterranean, so East Coast.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we could talk offline. Just so we don't end up in Leavenworth and not the cool Leavenworth that we live nearby.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you went to your squadron after that. Did you deploy right away?
Workups. We would do the Eisenhower Air Wing 7. It was getting ready to go do a med cruise. But for a long time, we did workups. We did some debts on support for. I remember taking the uh, Theodore Roosevelt out for. Yeah, the Roosevelt was a brand new carrier, making it out for sea trials, and that was exciting to see what those things can do. And then I remember going on the Saratoga for a workup, just to support them.
Hmm.
Some of our guys would go out on small detachments on, small boys and go out there
Hmm.
and do those. But I never did any small boy work. Uh, but yeah, and then we deployed to the Med.
Nice. How was
But it
that?
was such a quiet time. Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Our time at sea was, one day at sea, 3 days at port, or 2 days at port, and
It's
five
a
days at
good,
port.
it's
Oh,
a good life.
yeah. Well, we didn't have money at the time. It was all based on flight hours, the budgets.
Hmm.
And so, it was, yeah, not until the wars broke out when they got a lot of money.
Yeah. And you were, yeah, so 84, 6 years. So you were like right there where you
Yeah, I
deployed.
separated. I got out of it right before Desert Storm broke out. And I was thinking for sure that they were going to call me and recall me, but they never
Hmm.
did. And I
Yeah.
was fully qualified. I was ready to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, you're ready to go. So
Hmm.
during your deployments, was there any interesting mission sets that you were involved in?
Uh, Nothing. I mean, for some people, it was very exciting. We had one aircraft commander do two in-water landings on one cruise.
Wow.
And he later he was our XO and he became a CO later on. But yeah, he had a two-engine failure at night and went in the water. And no, I take that back. It was an engine out, and he landed in the water and flew it out at night. We were getting ready to go put the bags on, and we were rushing around the island trying to get all the bags in the bird. And me and two other swimmers, we were going to go out and put the bags on,
Hmm.
but then we got a call that he had just flown it out and he was on his way back to the carrier some 20 miles away.
Wow.
And then the same CO, different crew, he also lost his gear loop system on the main rotor head. And so he landed straight ahead and he could see the indication of the emergency loop system kick in. And so he felt confident he could fly it out and he flew it out as well. So he had two in-water landings and two flyouts, and everybody got back safely. But yeah, that was kind of nuts. We had an A7 being taxied. I think this was on the Saratoga. he was um, he was being yellow shirted, and his nose wheel went into the catwalk, and he panicked and he pulled the ejection handle. Which I don't know if he panicked. That's probably what you do. If the
Hmm.
nose starts to tip over, going off to the side, you don't wait until you're like that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, you
punch out when
eject
you
right into the
can.
water. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did an all night search on this guy, and some chief found him the next day, and his parachute was hanging off one of the antennas, and he'd been dangling out there all night long.
Really?
So yeah, the
And he
pilot.
was alive or dead?
He was okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no one heard him screaming. He just,
No one heard him, saw him until the next morning, next light. Some chief out there having a cigarette on one of the walkways.
wow.
And yeah,
Man, I
yeah,
wonder what the story is there, because that's nuts. Yeah, the last place you would look is like right in front of you.
yeah, yeah. We had a couple of, blue water ops was always stressful for everyone. I remember we had a Hawkeye take off with his brake set, and so he blew out his main tires, and we were going to rig the barricade for him. And he made a last call like, no, I don't want to take the barricade. I want to take a wire. And so he came in and took the wire. But we were thinking we're going to try to get these guys out. I mean, we were all ready to go.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
you're like sharks at that point. You're like you just
Yeah. And it's
Hawkeye.
blue water. So you remember how stressful everything was. The tempo was just super stressful. I think
Hmm.
people made more mistakes in blue water ops, just that mindset that you have nowhere else to go,
Yeah,
you know. But yeah, it was always something going on. Always something going on.
yeah.
Carrier ops back then. And back then you had to have 120 airplanes and 6,000 people on the boat. I mean,
Hmm.
it was packed to the gills,
Yep,
really packed because we had all the platforms to fly.
yep.
And of course, I got uh, I'm very proud of it. My tertiary qualification, I got plane captain qualified, working the flight deck for 6 weeks. And
Wow, heck yeah.
so, oh man, that was awesome. Chocks and chains and working by the island and working around. And so I got qualified for that plane captain too. So
Hmm.
I think everybody did in our unit. I don't know if everybody did later on, but yeah, it was good.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you're doing like some overland stuff, and
Hmm.
it's good to have that qualification so you can shut
Yeah.
water down and
Yeah.
do maintenance.
So I check all the boxes,
Yeah,
first crew, second crew, plane captain, all those boxes you check.
yeah, yeah. There's crazy stuff that happens on a carrier, things you don't see on the news. Like I remember it happened a few times, like an F-14 or something would land and a sidewinder would just pop off. Hits the wire and that thing is just bouncing down the. People are diving out of the way. Like this thing's gonna blow.
The vertical replenishments were always stressful, with live munitions coming across.
Hmm.
And it was just stressful for everybody. I remember, but
Yeah.
you did it. You did it. You have a bear coming by. You're going to be on alert 5, and you're all out there and ready to go. And
Hmm.
yep, yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I would have
Yeah.
stayed in. Believe me, I would have stayed in, but I had this other bug going on in my life.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So yeah, before I was even in the Navy, I had my private pilot license. I was 17. And then when I got in through the Navy flying clubs, I got all my additional ratings. And so I was flying when I wasn't flying. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm going to go fly for a living. So there was something on my pay stub that said my end of service date, and I kept taking it to my chief. I said, Chief, it says I get out here. He says, Oh no, I have you for this amount of time. I have you. You're mine. I'm like, okay. So anyway, the letter goes to the Pentagon, comes back. Oh, you're separating in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And I'm like, wow. But here's a nice SRB if you want to stay in. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? So I decided to get out and separate. And but I still felt I wanted to stay connected. So I was in the reserves. I stayed active, not active duty reserves, not a TAR, but drilling, a drill reserve.
Okay.
So
Did you
I
fly at all
continued.
during that time?
Yeah, yeah, quite a bit. I would fly once a week if they could get a hold of me,
Hmm.
right? Because I was living in Jacksonville and the squadron was there, and they
Yeah.
always needed a crewman to go up.
Yeah. What type of, I know in San Diego, when I was in like the reserve squadron, did a lot out at San Clemente, with the remote subs for the SW ops and,
Hmm.
picking up and deploying that stuff. But they did a lot of different things. My roommate and someone I went through SAR school, Brian Renier, was a part of that. On the East Coast, though, like what's a normal operation for the
We would do HS work. We had dipping sonar. I think they were the Delta models, just slightly older than the
Mhm.
current hotel models. Excuse me. And same mission. We'd go down to the bombers, down to the range, We'd
Mm.
go to Key West, down to the range down there. Um, we would do the same mission. And later, that unit went on to, I want to say, Diego Garcia when Desert Storm broke out, and they had the
Mm.
B-52 pickup that unit. But I had just missed it by 2 months.
Oh,
If
well.
I would have been another 2 months, I would have been over there in Diego Garcia. Yeah, but they did
Yeah.
get that pickup.
Nice. Do you wish you would have been a part of that?
Uh, if I hadn't have been flying full time, I probably, yeah, I would have missed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but this bug was so. I mean, you talk to anybody that flies at a young
Hmm.
age. I mean, it's just so powerful that you know.
Yeah.
So that was pulling me away from the Navy. It
Yeah.
really was, and
Yep.
I would have stayed in. Matter of fact, I was recommended to go to NAVCAD by my CO, and I did. I had a 4.0 on the flight aptitude. I took all the tests, and I it came down to the service commitment after flight training, what they were asking. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm going to give away 12 more years
Hmm.
to do this. Let me get out. Yeah. So I decided to
And at
separate.
that time, Desert Shield was probably happening, so there's that in your mind because you never know how
Yeah.
long that's going to last.
Yeah. My brothers ran, and, we never turned down a fight. And so I would have been fine going either way.
Hmm.
If the Navy would have came back and said, you're going, I'd probably, okay. But,
Yeah.
that never happened.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right though. That bug. I have good friends that I went through SAR school and I was at HS2 with Brent Perkins, Matt Laughlin. They're both, Matt's captain for Delta. Brent's dropping red
Mhm.
sauce on fires down in, wherever the fires are now. I mean, just
Yeah.
as it's their life and they love it and they loved it while they were in and just you could tell like that's the direction they're going. Even Brandon Webb,
Yeah.
whose episode dropped today, he went SEAL team, was a sniper trainer. He's just flying like full time right now, but just for fun or whatever.
Hmm.
But it's just, yeah, you have that drive and it's
Yeah.
nothing can
It's,
stop you.
right. Yeah. By the time I was 23 years old, I had my airline transport license, so and the cool thing is that all my buddies in my squadron, I was flying them around at the time. I remember Roosevelt Roads. I'd go with the Navy Flying Club and take a six-seater out, and we'd go out to one of the islands out there. Um,
Mhm.
and we'd spend the day at the beach and then come back, and everybody's like, were you guys up flying around today? Yeah, we are just over some island next door. And so, that's the kind of stuff I got involved with, and it was fine. And, the CO let me do ground schools on board the boat because I was a flight instructor.
Mhm.
And I'd get my rotary guys ready to take their equivalency exams, and so it was working out great for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So then that led into the next season of your life.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
us about that.
So I started flying full time as a flight instructor in Jacksonville over there at Craig Airport. I was teaching a little bit at Navy Jacks Flying Club. But I had all my students over there at Craig, and then that worked into a corporate flying job, which worked into my first regional airline job. I did that for 6 years, uh, and then I flew for the state of North Carolina for a while, and then I went to my other airline out of Milwaukee, and there I was on MD-80s. I was an MD-80 captain, DC-9 captain, Midwest Airlines. Uh, when Midwest Airlines went away, I took a short stint in the Middle East at Qatar Airways. I was a 320 captain over there.
Oh.
And then I came back and I got hired by an ATR operator for FedEx for a short while. And then I kind of got my dream job. 5 years, I flew for Boeing here in Seattle. I did production flight tests and accident investigation. And all along in my career, I was involved with accident investigation. I got involved in my first airline, and I've listened to your podcast in the past, and you talk about service. And I always had this feeling that if I could provide something back through expertise or technical knowledge through accident investigation, it's serving my other pilots because we never want to see these accidents repeat by all means.
No.
And there's always findings and, what we call probable cause. I don't like to use the term probable cause, but we always have findings. And if I can use my expertise in any way, and be an advocate for how the pilot would operate and how the pilot would think and how you think as a captain, and relay that to my investigation bodies, whether it's a foreign body, an airline itself does its own investigations, or the NTSB. By all means, I'm going to jump in there and participate.
Want to show your support for Calming the Chaos and the stories of our nation's elite rescue swimmers? Check out our exclusive merch line shirts, hats, and stickers designed for those who live with courage and purpose. Military and first responders get 10% off each order. Just use the code SARRESCUE10, SARRESCUE, the number 10, SARRESCUE10, at checkout. Grab yours today on Amazon or briandickinson.net/store and wear your support proudly so others may live.
And that's how I've always given back into this community, is through air safety accident investigation. So that's what I did at Boeing full time. Yeah, that's what I did at Boeing full time. And then I did production flight tests when they allowed me to fly, the days that I could go fly. And then I got to a point where this job is the same job for the next 15 years. I don't know if I really want to keep doing this, where I was doing a lot of writing, a lot of technical writing. And Atlas had this position open at Payne Field to fly the large cargo freighter. And so I applied, talked to my buddies that were already there. They said it was a pretty good outfit. They treat families really well and treat you well for family emergencies, that kind of thing. And so I put in for that. And so I've been there almost 10 years now at Atlas. And I just have a few years left before I retire. So I'll retire there with Atlas. Right now, I'm currently a 747 captain.
Awesome. That's amazing. Do you have a favorite plane that you've flown?
My favorite plane is my 1949 Stinson 108-3 that I get to fly with my family.
Yeah.
I take my kids, and I've taught my son how to fly. And so that's my favorite plane. The one that handles the best is probably the 777, just because the fly-by-wire technology on the aircraft. The one that is the most comfortable is the 747, with the upper deck and the bunks. And the nice galley, nice sized bathroom. We got the business class seats up top side. That's the most comfortable. And I'm going out tomorrow, and I'll go out for 2 weeks to go fly. So I'll be all over the world. Every time I go out, I'm all over the world. Just everything looks small now.
Yeah,
all these places.
I imagine. What is give us some dirt, like in your safety, your time at Boeing. Tell us a day in the life of like how that would go down, and what's one of the crazy things you've seen that you can talk about.
Yeah, so the primary responsibility of an accident investigator at Boeing is, of course, to be ready for that call. Whether your technical expertise is to do a cockpit voice recorder readout, and then because in that same room you have people from the regulator, which could be the FAA or some CAA. You have the airline representative. In the US, you might see a pilot union representative. And then you're there as the subject matter expert for Boeing, as an SME. And so they're going to count on you to all the little sounds and nuances and when things sequence on the aircraft. So you're there to help provide clarity on what's going on. So I would participate in that. But then what took up a lot of my time is airline customer visits, where I would spend weeks and weeks talking with airline management, and then we'd go out and embed and fly simulators and line flights and do a safety outbrief with the pilots and the senior leadership as we left. But then the fun part was the production flight test, where I'd come back and do, we'd shut down generators in flight, or we'd be at high altitude. We'd turn off the air conditioning system to see how the cabin would bleed out. With the loss of cabin pressure.
Wow.
Or we'd go out and deploy, turn off all the hydraulics and wait for the ram air turbine to deploy under the wing. And that would provide power for hydraulics or electrics on a 777. So I got to do things that line pilots don't ever get to do on that. And we'd be flying around on one engine, do a relight, shut down the other engine, do a relight, come in, do a max auto brake landing, or to let the auto land system take over. So you got to do some cool stuff on that, you
Hmm.
know, things that you don't normally get to see as a line pilot.
Yeah.
Um,
Go hit some autos.
yep, yep. We go to Moses Lake and fly all over the place in those. Uh, we wouldn't do like the heavy stall test, and those are the experimental guys. Those are the
Hmm.
and girls. So Boeing has about 20 experimental pilots, and they have about 60 production flight test pilots. And so where they drag in the tail, they're doing flutter test, or those are the experimental pilots. And then the regular pilots like us, it already has an airworthiness certificate in the airplane. It's all ready to fly. It's out of the factory. It's built, but it hasn't flown yet. And so we're the ones up there doing the first flights on the
Yeah.
aircraft before the customer gets to see it. Once it passes the Boeing pilots and we sign it off, then the customer pilots get to come in and they get to fly it. They don't get to do as many things with the airplane. And then it finally gets delivered after the customer pilots say, okay, some airlines, the Boeing pilots could buy it for them. Like Southwest, they don't fly it at all. They just let the Boeing pilots decide that airplane's good to go. And then it goes right into delivery.
Man, that just seems like scary, but it's fitting for calm in the chaos. I mean, you've learned how to remain calm in the chaos. You're very equipped to do this job. There's a lot that potentially could go wrong. I mean, there's so much Q&A going up to that point.
Yeah. It really shows up in the simulator because that's where we're really tested. And I have like 7 or 8 type ratings. And each one, there gets to a certain point in your training where they're just throwing everything at you, just throwing everything at you. And you really have to slow everything down as a process.
Hmm.
Like, what is your primary objective? What are you responsible for right now? What's in queue? What's down the road? What's after landing? And even in line operations, even after landing, what paperwork and notifications are required upon me.
Hmm.
And so you just slow everything down from the very beginning and you work your way down and stay methodical. You can't go off the reservation and make up new ways of doing something. If you've been training it this way on your
Yeah.
check ride day, don't go and get creative. Same thing in the pool. Don't get creative. They already told you how to do it. Just do it that way,
Hmm.
you know? And so in my career, I've always done it that way, and it's been very successful for me. And I've never backed down. If I want to go fly an airplane or get hired, or I just go and do it. I just stay persistent. I read the
Yeah.
question and I answer the question, nothing more, nothing less, and provide what they're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. What's the scariest thing that's happened in your flying career?
Scary. Um, Nothing's been scary. I've been pretty fortunate.
Okay, were other
I've
people
had,
screaming and you were just calm? Not scary to
uh,
you, but is there
I mean, I've
any?
had I've had airplanes on fire and engines on fire,
That seems scary.
and yeah, but you stick to a process, and the checklists keep you safe as long as you stay within that flow and
Hmm.
don't go off the reservation. And um, and you do it, and you bet the odds. You're like, the engineers say if I do it this way, I have the best chance of getting this airplane safely on the ground,
Hmm.
and that's what you do. So sometimes things are unscripted, and there's been plenty of those accidents out there, and you have to
Hmm.
do the best. Think about, use your best judgment and come up with the what you think is the right way. Now, we don't operate in a vacuum. As a pilot and as a captain, you ask for the advice of your other crew members, and maybe they're thinking
Hmm.
of a different thing. And sometimes we might make a radio call, or we might do a SATCOM call and talk to somebody else. We try
Yeah.
not to make decisions that don't have to be made right now, not by ourselves. If the decision has to be made right now, you can't delegate that. Like either a go around or land, then we're going to make that call right then and there. We don't really argue that too much
Hmm.
unless it's grossly unsafe, you know. So a
Yeah.
late decision, go around by the captain, you just go around. And actually, in our airplane, a guy in the back seat, the third or fourth pilot, they say go around, we go around. We don't question that because he might
Okay.
be seeing something we don't see. We'll talk
Yeah.
about it once we're safely away from the runway. So you can't delegate safety. you make decisions based on the information you have, but you try to include all the resources around you. That's how
It's
we
so
look at it.
interesting because I've done some high altitude mountaineering, and it's very similar, a very similar leadership that I take, and I talk about it often. We train for things that are within our control, but then when things are outside of our control, we have to respond. And what you just said there is you don't question it. So if I'm at high camp or any camp that I deem I need to have this conversation, if I'm leading a team, I will say when we're heading up, if I make a decision, that is the decision. We'll talk about it when we get back safely.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want is people arguing when you're, strapped to each other high up on a highly glaciated peak with high winds and weather and altitude affecting you, and they don't have that experience. But I also, I have to be humbled as well because, it might not be my day. So to have
Mhm.
real conversations, but once a decision is made, we don't question it. We get down safely and then we have that conversation.
Yeah, that's actually, in our style of we call it crew resource management. It's they're trying to incorporate that into all the hospitals and operating rooms,
Hmm.
you know. And I've had plenty of friends that get involved in that consulting business to go into operating rooms and they observe and then we talk about it, after the event, what they saw. And
Mhm.
hopefully people can learn. But it takes as a captain, you have to, and I guess as a leader in your field, you have to respect the process, and you have to stick to it. If you go off reservation and you start doing things odd and out of sequence, then that tells the other team that it's okay for them to do that.
Mhm.
So if you stay focused and you stay focused on the task, like we have sterile cockpit rules, and I try to stick to that as much as I can, but we don't talk about extra things or non-flying activities. We
Mhm.
stick to the we stick to what we're supposed to be doing during those climbs and below 10,000 feet
Mhm.
religiously. But if I go off the camp and I start doing things odd, that almost gives permission to my crew to do the same. And that's a
Absolutely.
slippery slope. And we you really have to avoid that. And here I am been flying 40 years and it served me very well. But I try not to make up anything new on my own. I really
Mhm. Yeah, don't let your guard down now. Yeah, that
yeah,
consistency, it's huge. And the other is it's when you go off script, it's a distraction piece. I remember when I became crew chief or first crewman, I was doing like a rescue, simulated rescue, throw the smoke out or doing whatever. And then I heard the pilots like talking about what they were going to do that weekend. And I remember right away, I stopped them like, sir, like stay focused or whatever, just got roped them back
yeah.
in. And that was all planned, to see if I would assert myself. And I think at that point it was like the check's over, like, you've completed. Like that
Because
was
probably someone told you one day if you hear that and they hear the people going off, off
I'd never heard
topic,
it. No, that
you got to
was
round them back in. They probably
yeah.
warned you about it once or
Oh
twice.
yeah, and I just never paid attention. But
I don't think a lot of that what we did, back then and today, what I do is intuitive. I don't think a lot of it is it comes naturally. I think a lot of it it has to be learned behavior. You have to, and then you have to buy into it. You have to be willing to participate in the process. And I've seen in my career guys that go off and they create a new way of doing things. They're not very successful, and
yeah.
they don't stick around very long. They move on.
And they're
Yeah,
they're probably not a fit for that career with, that
yeah,
position if that's their mentality. Like
yeah.
they would be too constrained. Like
Right. I
that's
saw that
probably
early in my career, not so much now because, I'm dealing with pilots that, have been doing this a long time. And
hmm.
so, yeah,
Cool. Well,
we're,
James,
we're
yeah.
now, we're now more or less considered in our fifth generation of cockpit resource management. So it's evolved a lot from the older days of the
Yeah.
captain being the absolute authority. Everything he says
Oh man.
goes, everything. Yeah. Crashed a lot of airplanes doing it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but any change can be hard, like any change, through life, people will fight it. And you've seen so much of the evolution of just, everything in the aviation field. Like how have you seen, like, have people been receptive to that, or has that been tough, like, especially for older people as change is occurring? We've always done it this way.
Um, I think the older folks that have been doing it as long as I have are great with it. I think some of the younger guys that come in are challenged with it,
Mm,
and they're tempting to either jump ahead of their other crew members. So when we're running a checklist, you might have a guy that's really fast, but we're talking to the other pilot as we're running the checklist. So you're going at his speed. He might be flying the aircraft by hand, answering checklist or looking at. But if the guy in the right seat or the non-flying pilot is really jumping ahead, you have to slow down. And as a captain, I slow down to my slowest crew member. If he's
mhm,
doing something or distracted, I make sure he's circled back in. He's understanding what I'm saying. So I'm not just talking over myself and
mhm,
over him. Right. So those folks we have to be careful about. And we lose probably 20% of our new hires
mm,
because they don't work out well in the sim.
yeah,
And we lose a lot of captains going through upgrading because they don't know how to slow their profession down to match the other crew members. So
mhm,
we're really careful about working as a crew. And I work with up to 4 pilots. I got 2 operating, I got 2 behind me. Yeah, and they're part of the crew when we're taking off and landing. So
mm.
if they're busy doing stuff, I make sure that they're all on board and we're all doing the same way.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're up front so I can relax in the back and watch a movie and have a drink.
Yeah.
You want to pivot over to a hypothetical scenario? You want to be a
Oh
rescue
man, it's
swimmer
been
again?
such a long time, but man, go ahead. Let's
Are you
let's give it a
scared?
shot. Scared? No, I'm not scared. I might get it wrong.
Egg you on. Okay, let's.
This is
Yeah.
just training, right?
No, you're getting launched on a rescue. Let's see.
Oh,
Let's see. What have you not done? Let's try this. Okay. A desert high-speed crash rescue.
oh,
We're in the Persian Gulf. High-speed military convoy accident leaves multiple critically injured personnel in 120-degree Fahrenheit desert conditions with limited supplies. You're
my
launching
God.
an overland SAR. What's going through your mind?
Wow. Do I have enough water? That's the first thing I'm thinking about. Do I have enough water on board? Um, do we know how many? Is this an isolated vehicle or is this
A
multiples?
convoy, so
It's multiples.
yeah.
Yeah. Do I have more assets coming in behind me? Do we have more birds coming in? And you're going to try to go on the upwind. Um, if there's smoke or fire, you're going to try to be on the upwind side, at least land up there and work from that direction. I know if I have a fire evacuation on my aircraft, we're always going to meet upwind.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'm going to try to, prioritize the worst off first and try to make sure that I can get them stabilized and get them ready for transport and then work my way from there. But hopefully I won't be the only person on the ground, doing this pickup.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I
Good.
if I'm it, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm not going to stop. Like that one guy who had 29 or 21 rescues there at the submarine. I'm not going to stop. I'm
Yeah,
just
Larry
gonna,
Grossman, man. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I'll stay out there till we're done, till the job's done.
I know you
I'll stay
will.
out there with him if I need to.
Yeah, give up your seat. Yeah, I appreciate that. No, that's yeah, exactly. There's so many things until you're on scene, but yeah, it's a convoy, especially if you're in a 60, you don't have the H3 space and just depends on the platform you're in, but same, and what caused the crash and,
Yeah.
enemy.
Yeah. I'm thinking toxic fumes,
Hmm. Yeah,
gotta
you
be
might get a
careful
VA
about.
rating later for with huffing them.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a funny story about the VA. Um, yeah, if I got a moment. Um,
It's your podcast.
yeah, when I separated, the VA called me and said, "I see you did a very difficult job." I said, "Yeah, it was good, enjoyed it." And they said, "Well, do you have any disabilities?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine. You don't have loss of hearing, anything?" "No, I'm good." "Any limbs, any joint?" "No, I'm fine." So they're definitely trying to get me on some benefits, but as a pilot. we have to disclose all those things and
Hmm.
take any insurance money or disability. We have to disclose it. And I knew as a career, I never wanted to put any of that on my paperwork. But no, I was fine. But yeah, the VA definitely was reaching out. They had money to give away, that's for sure.
Wow. That's wild because I think most people I've talked to and myself, it's been a opposite. No one's
Well, because
calling
you
you.
went through a war. Yeah, you went through a war, and I was going through strictly peacetime.
Mm,
So I think there's a lot to do with that.
yeah.
Our benefits were very nil back then. I had Veep education, that was it, like a
Hmm.
401k. I didn't have the GI Bill, like for flight training. It was all out of pocket for me.
Oh, well.
Right. Yeah.
The GI Bill wasn't around at that point.
Nope. We had Veep.
Yeah, I
The
remember.
Yeah, Vietnam era something plan, education plan.
Huh.
And so I cashed it out. So by the time I got out, all my flight training was paid for. I paid for it, but I was
Yeah.
drawing extra pay. So you know, I had the
Yeah.
money to do it.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, it definitely worked out. Yeah, you've had a very interesting journey, and what's cool
Uh,
about it is you're a planner. I can tell because in your mindset, here's where I'm gonna go. And I think I don't know, so many areas of our life, like I've talked to a lot of people in our lives, we may plan for the short term, but not necessarily the long term. And even that long term, if we do, it might have to do with work or retirement or something, but it might not be our marriage and our faith if that's important, and just
mm,
different aspects, being a planner, being a goal setter. Because if you don't have a goal, like even if you don't have a mission set in your flight, you're just where are you going to go? You're going to flounder.
right. And it does show up in your work. I think if you just kind of, I wouldn't say flail around, but if I show up on the flight deck without a plan what we're going to do that day, it sets the tone for the rest of the day. And I'm
Mhm.
going to have crew members doing all kinds of different things. But if you come in and say, "Hi guys, I'm James. Nice to meet you," then I try to get to know them a little bit and try to figure out our fuel plan, make sure they're all comfortable with my gas, to make sure they're comfortable with everything else going on in their lives. If they have things going on in their family, if they're thinking about that and they're preoccupied, they don't need to be here on the flight deck. They don't
Mhm.
need to be here. I'll make sure they get off the airplane. We'll take a delay, get them home, take care of them. So you definitely have to go in and be ready to accept the responsibility. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, you've had decades of just interesting experiences that most can't relate to. Give us some wisdom that we can impart with.
We need to go fly. I'll come pick you up and I'll take you flying. We'll go up to the San Juans or do something like that. Maybe we can have a good chat about that good stuff back then. Talk about SEER school offline, that kind
Yeah,
of
that'd be
thing.
awesome.
Talk about some of your rescue work that you've done. Let's talk about your climbing. I mean, I'm like blown away that people do that kind of stuff because I fly over the Himalayas and I'm like,
Hmm.
I know people that climb that stuff. And meanwhile, it's blowing at, 125 miles per hour. It's minus 60 degrees outside.
Oh,
And it's crazy to think that people go up there in that,
I know
you
it's
know.
stupid, right? Uh, well, okay, but give our listeners a bit of wisdom that you've learned all through
Um,
your years. No pressure,
I don't,
but you're gonna
yeah,
make or break millions
I'm
right now.
celebrating my 32nd year of marriage with my wife. I got two great kids. They're 20 years old in college. And, you wake up every day and you're just grateful for what you do have, what
Mhm.
you can do. And you're blessed with all these things around you. And so I try to remind my kids, don't forget about the little blessings in life, the little things that come along that are good. Yeah, you're
Mhm.
going to have bad days, but how are you going to know they're a bad day? How are you going to know the good days from the bad days,
Yeah.
until you have a few bad days. But we're always there. We're a family. We stick by each other. And I love talking to the guys in my old squadron, kind of going over some of the funny stories. A chief gave me wisdom one time. It saved my life. He says if one of the six pack A6s turn on you and you get that exhaust 10 feet away, drop everything you have and grab a pad eye. And sure enough, I did one night, and I could feel that exhaust coming over the top of my helmet. And man, that was some of the best advice I ever had in my life right
Yeah,
there.
no kidding. You might have been hanging over the side all night long.
Yeah. No, the kids can do whatever I'm trying to encourage them to do what they want to do,
Hmm.
but they can do whatever they want to do if they put their mind to it and just work at it. And we're there to help, there to help out any
Yeah.
way we can as a parent, you know,
Yeah,
but
that's great. Great wisdom.
yeah.
Yep.
And I
Just
want to
be
thank you
grateful.
for letting me have a chance to talk about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is cool.
That,
I've been
yeah.
listening to on my long flights. I put your podcast on. I listen to them.
Oh, does that make them longer or
I say
shorter?
on the no, it's great. No, it makes it fly by. Sometimes I'm just smiling and laughing. Just sometimes just smiling. Yeah.
Nice. Well, now you hear your own voice.
Yeah. And I flew with a SAR swimmer, trying to remember his name. And we started talking, and he was my FO, and he's out of the Miami base. And we started talking, but he stayed in a long time. He stayed in like good 20 years. Can't remember his name, though. I have to dig it up. I have to dig it up. But yeah, we just started laughing about some of our stories and the training that we went through. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very unique.
And I get to fly with some really cool guys that flew F-14s, F-18s. These were fighter guys that fly
Hmm.
for us now, my airline. International pilots that flew fighters over there. And you should just see the smile on their face when they say, "Oh, did you serve?" "Yeah, I flew." "Well, what'd you fly?" I said, "Well, I was a SAR swimmer." I didn't say I was an AW, but you were all AWs. Not all of us, but AW. I was a SAR swimmer. And you should just see the look on their face. They just love it. They
Hmm.
absolutely just love it that they got the SAR swimmer there as their captain for the day. Yeah, it's great. We just have a good time
Yeah,
with that. Yeah.
like a role reversal. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, cool, James. Thanks so much for being a
All right, brother.
guest. And yeah,
Thanks
we'll
for having me.
definitely have to connect. Yeah,
Okay.
and for everyone else, we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Calm in the Chaos podcast. Please subscribe to be notified of future episodes. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Until next time, get out there and make a difference so others may live.